Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the June 16th meeting of the Finance Committee. As usual, you are being audio and video recorded if you are logged on to the meeting or in person. And so tonight we have a series of CPA orders we will be discussing and issuing a recommendation. Let's call
You're looking for the hearing? Yes.
the meeting to order as we deal with a technical issue. Okay, I think we're set for a roll call for quorum.
Okay, Councilor Maori.
Here.
Councilor Elkins.
Here.
Councilor Moulton.
Here.
And Councilor Labarge.
Here. Okay, quorum. Let's see if we have any public comment. Doesn't look like in the room. Let me just check Zoom. That would be the next thing. Okay, I'm not seeing any public comment, so we'll move along. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of April 30th and May 12th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Labarge, second by Councilor Elkins. Okay.
Councilor Maori.
Yes.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
And Councilor Labarge.
Yes. But we can do both sorts though, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, we could have done.
Oh.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Just 2 seconds.
Thank you. So the minutes approved. We're moving on. And thank you so much. We have Sarah LaValle here to talk with us about our these series of CPA orders. So let's see. We'll take them. Let's just count how many. Okay. So we can just take them one by one if that works for everyone. And so the first one we have is 25.260, an order to appropriate $17,400 in CPA funds for the Ruggles Center accessibility upgrades.
All right.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for being here.
Of course. So I'm Sarah LaValle. I am staff to the Community Preservation Committee. And after some extensive review of a lot of worthwhile applications submitted this round, these are the ones that they selected to bring forward for funding consideration by City Council. And this will expend all of the available funds for FY25 and also includes a borrowing request to allow all of the projects to be completed. All right, so the Ruggles Center is one of the smallest ones, and this will provide a ramp to grant ADA access to the facility. The Ruggles Center currently has a National Register listing in process as part of the Florence Abolition National Register District. It does have a ramp currently, but it doesn't meet code and is difficult for visitors to use. So they'd like to open up the facility to more groups and individuals, and this will allow them to do that.
Yes, Councilor Labarge.
Yes. How can we say no to this? Here they're looking for an ADA compliance, and I agree with this amount of money. Absolutely necessary. I've been at the Ruggles Center many times, and I think it's the right way to go because of so many people in wheelchairs, or even if they have canes or what. So I feel this is absolutely necessary.
Counselors, I have one question. If you, so I've been to the building, but not as someone who might need a ramp. So is the rest of the building accessible? Is there?
It is. The interior of the building is accessible, but the current ramp is it was an afterthought, and it's not ideal for people with mobility challenges. Instead of going down to the parking lot, it goes around to the sidewalk, and then people have to navigate in a way that just doesn't make sense. And the grade of it also is not ADA compliant currently.
Yeah. Right. I just didn't know if once they got in there, if they, if they had other facilities.
They do.
Oh, great.
Yep.
Well, that seems like a good thing. Yes.
I was going to ask this sort of afterwards, but instead I'll front load it as a kind of a general question as we go forward. My question in general will be if you could just let us know if any of these projects were particularly controversial through the initial review process and that kind of thing. I don't need a blow-by-blow of everything, but it would be helpful to understand if there was any public concerns raised at the earlier meetings assessing these things. So,
Sure, absolutely. So with this one, the only issue was figuring out a design that really made sense. Everything at the Ruggles Center is done by volunteers, and the design was done on a volunteer basis as well. So it was in no way an issue with the merits of the project, but just figuring out that it was something that would be able to meet code, which it seems like the final design will.
thank you.
Excellent. That's a good question. Yes.
So was the Disability Commission involved in that discussion?
Not specifically, because it really was related to a design and code requirement.
So it's more code than really understanding what is needed by the class of people who would benefit from this.
I think it's both. The Disability Commission wasn't consulted because of the technical requirements of the slope of the ramp and different things. But the Ruggles Center themselves identified that the ramp was a problem and didn't make sense for people with mobility challenges.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Excuse me. Do we want to, yeah.
I was going to, and maybe this is what you're about to say, I was going to suggest maybe we go through the whole list, and if we find that we can pass all or a group of them, or vote on a recommendation.
Exactly.
That we do it at the end and let us continue, just sort of.
Not bore Sarah to death with
Let Sarah.
constant voting? Yes,
Or what
great
you
idea.
do, instead of voting on it now, you want to go through all of them and then vote on all as a
Yes.
package,
Yes.
correct?
If that's what.
That makes, yes,
Yep.
that's, I think that's a great idea. So that was,
that idea.
okay, so we'll continue on to B, 25.261, in order to appropriate $248,000 in CPA funds for Boggy Meadow Road Trail construction on first reading. Yes.
All right. So this is if anyone's familiar with the Cook Avenue entrance to Fitzgerald Lake, this is a popular entrance. It goes by a scenic beaver pond and then eventually to Fitzgerald Lake Dam. It served as a road for many years, but now is just a pedestrian and bicycle trail. It has a lot of rocks, it has a lot of roots, it has a lot of slope issues and other constraints that make it a challenge even for people with no mobility issues. I know people who have tripped and broken arms and legs. So this will create an accessible trail for people to be able to get to the beaver pond. And this was funded on a design basis by City Council and the Community Preservation Committee previously. Designs are now in hand and it's ready to move forward to construction. There's just some picture of the beaver dam at the end and then just a representative shot of what it looks like with rocks. And it's an uneven place to walk. It's not friendly for those even who are feeling anything less than 100% sure-footed, so this will address that. And while the cost that's included in the CPC recommendation in the order is the full amount of construction, this will be reduced to the local match only for the Mass Trails grant if that application, which is currently pending, is successful.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes, I have a question. Is it this area we're talking about where the old Moose Club used to be?
It is, yes. So the trail will run from that entrance to the beaver pond.
All right, so where all the condos are there right now, people have lived there forever. You're going into where the Moose Club is, and you're going right onto the trails, right? So what you're talking about is extending that trail?
No, it's just converting the existing roadway to a pathway that's accessible for all people.
Okay.
So it's not creating any new trail. It's just
Okay.
working with what's
Thank you
already there.
very much, Sarah.
Yes, I am very familiar with this entrance to the Greenway, and it's very, as you say, it's very popular, very heavily used, and I am entirely in favor of this creating universal access, but also, as you point out, just making it easier for everyone to use that conservation area. So, thank you.
Yes, so is it going to be paved or just flattened, kind of
It will be a soft surface. but,
soft surface?
Most likely gravel. It won't be paved.
Gravel, okay. And yeah, that would be, a great addition, especially if aren't they putting more housing where the lodge was?
Yeah, there's a Habitat for Humanity project that should be getting started fairly soon.
Right, okay. And what happens if the grant is not matched?
If the grant is not matched and the city receives the Mass Trails funding, we would have to forfeit the grant.
You can't go back and, you wouldn't try to, I guess the CPA funds would be exhausted, so you couldn't go back for the rest of it, or, so they would just return to the, to the committee.
There's a 25% required local match, so if
I
it
see.
doesn't have that, then you wouldn't even be able to apply.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Oh, yes.
Yes. As Sarah, I think knowing about the CPA and so forth, I think that you should explain, like, Brian, being the chair, Brian Adams, right down the line, I have one of my residents who's on that too. They look at this stuff very, very carefully here. They just don't go ahead, look, and say, okay, we're going to approve it. Because I've had people call me and ask me about this, okay? And I told them, they hear people coming in of their knowledge of what they need, correct?
Correct. The projects are vetted by the committee for several months, and the process
Exactly.
includes site visit
Exactly.
and careful consideration.
Right.
And I didn't give a background on the review process or what the CPA is, but I'm happy to do that if anyone
Right.
is interested.
Thank you.
Any other? Okay, this is exciting. Moving on to C. 25.262, an order to appropriate $35,000 in CPA funds to Laurel Park Documentation Project.
All right, so this was an application from the Historical Commission and was one of the recommendations of the preservation element of Sustainable Northampton that was completed last year. And this is the next step for National Register of Historic Places listing at Look Park. Laurel Park is an incredibly unique and important resource for the city. A lot of the buildings there are threatened by having been converted from basically summer residences over time to now full-time residences. They're in, some of them have been taken care of perfectly and they're in amazing shape. Others have, they were never intended to be full-time houses, so they have challenges about expanding and demolition once things get to be too bad. But it's a unique Methodist summer community that began in the 1870s, and there are very few of these across the country. The Laurel Park Association and the homeowners are very much in favor of this and are willing to open up their archives and contribute research time to work with a consultant to get this work done.
Well, yeah, it's certainly a colorful history of the Laurel Park, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. I see Councilor Jarrett has his hand up. Welcome. Let me unmute you. Let's see. Can I unmute him? Oh, good. Hi, yes.
Hi, Finance Committee. Thanks
Sure.
for having this. My question about Laurel Park was, it's both a condominium community and a nonprofit organization. They have the website, I think it's laurelparkarts.org, and they hold events for the public. Is there a commitment to that continuing? Because we think, I like to think about, we're providing this resource to them, and that there is something that they give back to the community.
Yeah, there isn't a commitment tied to this specific request. I mean, this is something that came from the Historical Commission to be able to document this research on behalf of, document the community on behalf of the city, and use that for a potential springboard to National Register of Historic Places listing. This is similar to what was done most recently at the Pomeroy Terrace neighborhood. So it's not coming from the community, and the community hasn't presented this. So we didn't think it was appropriate at that point, at this point, to put any requirements on Laurel Park itself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, any other questions around the Laurel Park? Okay, we'll move on to 25.263, in order to appropriate $70,000 in CPA funds for Mainsfield Flood Resilience Project Phase 2.
All right, so Mainsfield has been hit very hard in the last few years by damaging flooding. Well, with its location on the Mill River and the increasing storms that we're seeing, the Recreation Department and the users understand that this is something that's going to continue to happen. So the Recreation Department received funding in a previous CPA round to begin some analysis, some H&H modeling, and some more detailed topography, and work with a drone to figure out exactly what's going on there, when it will flood in a very detailed level, where the velocity of those storms and floods will be, and that will feed into a design of how we can think about a reimagined Mainsfield that we know will flood, but maybe not in such a damaging way. And everybody knows that these are really heavily utilized fields. They're the city's only lighted softball fields. It's an amazing resource for the community, but using it in the way that the city has been for all this time is getting to be a little more challenging. So figuring out how to work with the flooding instead of against it is something that the Recreation Department is really thinking hard about.
How much damage was done to the field?
Quite a bit. The roadways had washed out. There was a lot of damage to the bathrooms and the dugouts. I think some of the facilities were closed for the entire 2023 and much of 2024.
And that's a busy field.
It is a very busy field.
There's a lot of people who use the pavilion down there, and they have other boards that come in and have meetings down there. It's a great field.
Yeah, I hope that we can afford the solutions they put. Do they usually just offer a myriad of different levels of solution, solutions for flooding?
Yeah, so the community's input will be really critical to figure out what that looks like. So Fuss and O'Neill, that the Recreation Department is working with, is using all of this data to come up with some options, and this will help fund both more detailed designs and also some additional community input, so the rec department can hear from the users about what's really critical, what are things they absolutely can't live without, and what are things that could move around, and what would that look like.
Great. Okay, any other comments? Oh, go for it. Yeah.
The $70,000 is to go ahead and hire a consultant?
It would, yeah.
Which way?
So it would continue Fuss and O'Neill's work to the next stage. So this had originally been presented as a single project where Fuss and O'Neill would first do the scientific modeling and the topographical assessment, and then jump right into the community input. It was phased due to funding constraints at that point. So this is nothing that's new, but something that the committee didn't recommend for funding the previous time.
Okay. Okay, so moving on, we are up to 25.264. In order to appropriate $639,615 in CPA funds for Lead School Playground for All.
Right, so this is the second accessible playground that the CPC has recommended. City Council previously funded a playground at Ryan Road School that's currently in design stages. This was presented by teachers at Leeds School, but it's a joint project between the Leeds School and the Central Services Department. The existing young children pre-K playground at Leeds is limited and not accessible to all students and residents, and also will need to be removed in the upcoming years due to age and corrosion. And this will fund a new playground that will accommodate everybody, to include physical, sensory, and developmental disabilities.
Yeah, we're very excited about this in Leeds. I talked to the principal about it, and it will also bring it up, it will make it ADA compliant. Yeah, because what they have there is almost 20 years old, and it's actually used by that whole community in the summer. You know, I brought my kids there when they were toddlers during the summer hours and after school. So it's a community investment, not just for the schools.
Yeah, and that's something that was really important to the Community Preservation Committee, to hear that, you know, this isn't just for kids at the school during school hours. This will be for the entire community.
Yeah, it's one of the few, if you have very small children, that, you know, they could do easily. Councilor Moulton.
Yeah, I recall a year ago the discussion of the application for the Ryan Road playground, and there were a number of supporters who appeared before us, and I believe they said that there's no similar facility for many miles, that it may actually be, the closest one may be in Connecticut, if I'm remembering. So this is, and the Ryan Road one is currently being designed, you said, right?
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
So this is great that we will have a second one in Northampton. It's really, I think it shows Northampton's leadership in this.
Yeah, and this one, as Councilor Maori noted, is specifically targeted towards very young children. It doesn't mean it can't be used by older kids, but
Yes.
Younger kids will have the ability to play there. Well, that might not be the case at the Ryan Road playground.
Yes.
Sorry.
I would like to see this at Ryan Road School. I got a call from Angela, the president of the union, that they're starting already construction on it. It's all ADA compliance. I think we went for 700, what was it, 729,000 on ours. It was up there. And I know I got the phone call, I've been invited, they're gonna be done with it, I think in end of July or beginning of August. So anyways, we're all happy about this, and your people are going to be very happy because it's a playground for all.
Yeah. Okay, exciting, thank you. Okay, let's see. Moving on to 25.265, in order to appropriate 91,000. Oh, let me just check. Councilor Jarrett, did you have a question about the playground and I didn't see your hand? Yes, probably.
Yes, if there's still time.
Yes, go for it.
I'm so glad we're going to have another amazing playground. The Ryan Road playground also used a loan, and I wondered if you could detail the outstanding balance of that loan and how much that one and this one, if approved, would subtract from the available money each year going forward.
Yes, so that bonding is just happening now, so the city has not made any payments on that one yet. And let's see. And I would need to look at, yeah, I need to look at the estimate for this recommendation to see what that might be. Interest rates are fairly favorable now. So the committee weighed both the opportunity cost of losing this project and delaying it further, and potential price increases that could happen that might even be greater than the cost of the bonding.
Thank you.
So 25.265, in order to appropriate $91,065 in CPA funds for priority clothing collection restoration project.
All right, so the CPC heard from Historic Northampton and others, both in the community and experts in the field, about how just really amazing Historic Northampton's clothing collection is, and how they have examples, both from the day-to-day, like the dress pictured on the left, along with, so this is what it looks like now, along with a picture of its owner picking blueberries in the city when she wore it, and as well as clothing from historical figures. So this shows a Robin Hood costume that Grace Coolidge made for Calvin Coolidge Jr. that has a lot of dirt and other issues. And it's with historic clothes, it's not like you can throw them in the washing machine and address everything. They have a lot of wear and tear that needs to be addressed in an appropriate manner. Some of them have been hanging on hangers for 100 or 150 years. So if anybody pulls out something they haven't worn in a while, you'll see how it starts to pull. That can get to be pretty bad after a century or better. So there's a lot of repairs that need to be done, and all of this work needs to be completed both to preserve the garments for the city's history and to be able to display them to the public. They currently can't be displayed in the condition that they're in.
Yeah, when I first got on council, I had sticker shock around the preservation of clothes because we've had a few, but then they explained the process one night, and I kind of got why it took so much. I'm glad they'll be able to be on display, so that's good. So the public will have that benefit. Yeah.
This project speaks to my theater heart from back before, in the before times, before I went to law school. And I think this is such a great project, and important to, just preserve the stuff of life, the stuff of our everyday, lives. And so I think this is a great project. Just wanted to say so.
Well said. Yes, Councilor Labarge.
Yes. Where did they get these clothes from?
Oh, all over the place. So some of them were donated, some of them were acquired as part of larger collections. They were acquired from a multitude of ways over.
Right, because I know my Auntie Gibbon was very close to the Coolidge family, and she also donated stuff there also. And I'm looking at these clothes and I'm saying, oh my God, they're beautiful.
Yeah. And Lori Sanders and Betty Sharp, the co-executive directors, really stressed how rare it is to have the level of sort of ordinary day-to-day clothing that they have available in their collections, because it's ordinary, it's day-to-day. Like today, when we're done with something, you don't think it's important, and you might get rid of it, and that's what people did historically as well. But they have a lot of examples just from everyday residents.
Yes. So historically, we need a.
My cousin Joanne Scandelli, it's our side of the family. We have a ship of the Mayflower, and they're coming down, and we're going to bring it to the Historical Society. Yeah, and that's why our family called it the Mayflower Restaurant. Yep.
Well, that's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so historically, we need some hoarders throughout time, so that we can get here. And I wonder, and there are stories past with these clothes, like it was a costume, but someone must have even, that knowledge must have been passed down somehow, maybe. There were lots of letter writers, so maybe that's.
Yeah, some of the clothes, they know exactly where they came from and who wore them and when they wore them and why, and some of them are just like, wow, look at this cool example of this thing. Yeah. We don't know whose it is, but it's worthy of preservation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very cool. Okay. Anyone? Okay. Okay, so 25.266, in order to appropriate $98,000, $98,329, in CPA funds for priority historic gravestone conservation project.
Right, so this was a joint application from the Department of Public Works and the Historical Commission. The Historical Commission works closely with DPW as a steward of the city's historic cemeteries, and this will build on work that was done to address priority 1 and 2 stones at historic cemeteries. DPW has worked hard to do a thorough assessment of what the historic stones are that are out there, what they need for treatment, and issues that they have, so that they can plan to address them appropriately moving forward. So the map on the left is a condition assessment and conservation recommendations for the Park Street Cemetery. The highest priority stones were, as I said, able to be completed with a prior CPA award, and the stone on the right is an example of a damaged stone from West Farm Cemetery. So both of these cemeteries will be the target this time.
So the term priority there is in reference to the condition of the gravestone.
Correct, correct.
It's about time. We've been waiting for this. There's a lot of history here with the West Farm Cemetery, and we have many, many meetings, many. And we had historians from Florence Road to West Stanton, all around, who knew a lot of history in here. It's amazing. And I'm so happy that this has come forth, and they can go ahead and do what they have to do with the stones in there. Thank you.
All right, moving on. We're up to 25.267, in order to appropriate $3,000 in CPA funds to Forbes Library for textile preservation project.
All right, so this is another textile preservation project, but much smaller scale, just the beginning of Forbes assessing what they have and figuring out how best to make it available to the public. And like Historic Northampton, Forbes has clothing items from notable residents, like the two hats on the left from Calvin Coolidge and Grace Coolidge, as well as a pretty extensive T-shirt collection. The T-shirts shown here are Pride T-shirts from 1983 and 1984. So a little bit closer to us in time, but that still is more than 40 years ago. And a lot of people might have had these shirts, but they threw them away or ended up using them for rags or washing their car or whatever when they got to be a little ragged. But Forbes is has a great collection of these that tell an important story about Northampton's history. So they wanted to think holistically about how they could best display these and what conservation treatments they may need in the future.
That's so cool. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's great. Okay. We have one more, 25.268, in order to appropriate $300,016,553 in CPA funds for 148 South Street accessibility upgrades.
All right, so this application came from the Daughters of the American Revolution Betty Allen chapter, which owns a historic house at 148 South Street. This is one of the best preserved colonial structures in the city. It has a lot of amazing artifacts and a lot of original architectural elements on the inside, but it's not accessible at all. So if you have mobility challenges, this is not a place that you can currently visit. And the DAR is working hard to open up their doors for more public events and more tours and more genealogical research. And they were really dismayed that they're to the level that they're not able to do that currently. So they really wanted to create some inclusivity and allow the building to be used more. And let's go down. And they hired an architect to come up with a design to open up some of the doorways to accessibility, create an accessible bathroom, an accessible kitchen, and make sure that people could access the building from the street without encountering any impediments. And the CPC thought it was important that donations and other sources have contributed to other code updates and work on the structure, and that DAR has worked hard to be a great steward of this property. But this was something that was just really beyond the scope of what they could do on their own.
And that won't give second floor access, though, right?
It will not, no.
Yeah.
But it will allow access, I believe, to the entire first floor.
There was another CPA grant in the last few years that went to this house, right?
Yeah, in
2 years ago.
I think 2022, there was an award for replacement of knob and tube wiring, which was a danger to the structure.
Right, okay, right.
There was also one going way back to the 2009 or 2008, shortly after the CPA was established in Northampton.
Yeah, there was a small award, under $20,000 for refurbishment of the historic flagpole, which if you look at it, it's wood, which is rare for a flagpole these days, and a refurbishment of custom interior storm windows that were failing and causing some damage to the structure.
Yes, Councilor
I was
Barge.
talking with some of the members from the DAR, and they told me how more people with wheelchairs, people with canes, the difficulties that they're having. And I have a lot of respect for the Daughters of the American Revolution here. They do wonders for people. I have many people on my ward who belong to that. And I also, in my freshman year, got an award from them, so I'm proud with them.
Nice.
Yep.
And I'll add also that while the structure is owned by the DAR, it's also home to the Pomeroy chapter of the Sons of the American Revolution.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I see, oh, yes, go ahead.
So I just wanted to make a note that, one thing that's interesting about Northampton, and we have among the oldest housing stock in the country, and the balance between maintaining what we can in terms of historic homes and historic structures, and then balancing the need to update the places where people are living their modern lives and to meet our current needs. And I feel like we do a pretty good job of that. It's not always perfect, but I know of other communities that really can get bogged down in the historic preservation in ways that stymie growth and development and don't meet the current needs. And so I just wanted to make a note to say, I appreciate this. I feel like, sometimes it feels like these investments in old places and old houses and, whether or not not everybody places the same value on it, but I think but I do think it's important and that we get the balance right, and the CPA process is a big part of that, that we're able to identify some really key important structures in the city and let the city put some skin in the game and CPA go through its process so that we're coming together with a joint process. So I wanted to say this is a good example of that.
You should join it.
Yeah, and the Historical Commission also reviewed this application and was fully supportive of the really sensitive way in which the new improvements still had respect to the historic integrity of the house. So they didn't put the ramp on the front, for example. It was done in a really historically sensitive way that meets the Secretary of the Interior standards for treatment of historic properties.
Right. Okay, yeah, let's see, I think Councilor Jarrett has a question.
Yeah, thank you. I also appreciate that this will add accessibility to this important building. It's a significant amount of money for a private nonprofit, and so I'd appreciate hearing about the work that the Bellyon chapter of the DAR, of the work that they do for the community, or the events that they have, and I understand they have a continued commitment to having. Is that correct?
They do. So that one of the DAR's main focuses is historic preservation and education. So the house is open, I think, at a minimum, once a month to the general public, and they're also hosting events. One of them coming up, I think this weekend, is the Lafayette celebration that will commemorate when General Lafayette made his way through Northampton. So I saw that people are encouraged to wear their 1820s outfits, if you have any of those. I don't know what that would be. But DAR is working to be more inclusive and have even more events than they have in the past, and really adapt and teach people more about the revolution.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is, you're right. It's, no, it was on the 14th.
I don't have
They
any
celebrated
1820s close, so I didn't go.
On South Street on the 14th.
Okay, any more, any discussion on this item? I just had a general, now that we have all the CPA orders in, I know that people are concerned about how much CPA funds we're using on promoting attainable and affordable housing. So how is that going this cycle? Or, I mean, don't we have a goal of, what, 10%?
So a minimum of 10% of the revenues each fiscal year must be set aside for open space and recreation. That's one. Historic preservation, two. And affordable housing, that's third. And sometimes we'll get a whole slug of one type of project, like just a whole bunch of open space preservation all at once. So that it's not a constant, how much are we spending? The committee does try to keep it fairly even and be cognizant of the approximate amounts and percentages that they're spending on each area. But to some extent, it's driven by the timing of outside projects, like does a affordable housing partner that the city have something in the pipeline? Where are we with that funding? Like the project that Valley CDC is doing to rehabilitate the nursing home on Bridge Road is something that was really significant. So that was, a big influx of CPA funds. But now Valley is working hard on that and didn't have an application to put forward this fiscal year.
Right, if you don't have the application, you have to receive the application to
Yeah, so
consider.
So through fiscal year '25, round one, so not including this round because these haven't been finalized, and this is also available on the CPC website, it's a pretty even at about 25% for each of those four program areas. So historic preservation is just over 24%. Of CPA expenditures since the CPA was adopted in Northampton. Affordable housing also at 24%, open space just over 24%, and recreation at 27%. So it's been fairly even, and it does fluctuate, but over time they do tend to be about a quarter each.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Elkins, and then Councilor Moulton.
Yeah, and I was just going to note, I mean, in general, development right now in construction is kind of stymied across all sectors because of uncertainties in the market, and that affects, obviously, affordable housing as well. So thank you for that update.
Good point, yeah. Councilor Moulton.
And I would just further note that in the cover letter from Brian Adams that we received, there have been more than 200 units of affordable housing that have been created through the CPA over the now 20-year period.
Okay. Anyone have just general questions for Sarah while we have her? No? Okay. Okay.
No, but can I
yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can I say bravo to the visual, the slideshow that you created for this? I mean, I think it's very helpful to the community, as I think Councilor Elkins just noted that, or maybe it was Councilor Mayor. Anyway, somebody said people are curious about how CPA money is being used, and I think that having this visual representation really helps show the exact nature of what the projects are that this money is funding. So thanks for putting that together.
Sure, great. I'm glad it was helpful. And I'd also encourage people, if they're interested, to go to the CPC website and look at the actual applications, which contain, just a ton of amazing projects. And for older projects, we also have post-completion projects, during construction, photos, during construction photos. So there's a lot of resources available there.
Oh. Yes, Councilor Elkins, and then Councilor Barge.
So just briefly, I want to echo what Stan shared, and to say, thank you to the is it committee or commission?
Committee.
The committee for all the work they do. It's hours and hours, and it's of course volunteer, and also just it is the closest thing we have to something that is somewhat of a people's budget. Which, and I don't want to use a term of art that means a certain thing, people, so I'm not trying to engender a whole debate about that, but this is a process that is so community driven and so that, like Sarah said, that anybody can go and see what the projects are and what is being proposed, and see the process that goes to it. And then, of course, also the way in which it drives the city to match in most, if not all cases, right? The determinations made through this civic process. So anyway, I think it's a great process. It's a great way to get things done and to, drill down to what people in the community really want. So I think it's great.
Great. And the CPA has really served as a springboard to get a lot of projects started that wouldn't have been able to otherwise. The Affordable Housing Fund allowed the city to do the due diligence work on city-owned properties that was necessary to be able to turn them over shovel-ready to affordable housing partners. Those funds are really hard to come by, and that's not something that would have happened absent the CPA. Same things for conservation projects. So this, we're able to do surveys, we're able to do the initial due diligence to really get us going. It's really made a huge difference to the city.
Yes, I want to thank the CPC committee for everything that they have done. From the beginning, when we started with the Community Preservation Committee, it's a lot of work. And I want to thank all the volunteers for their time. This is not an easy committee. A lot of thinking has to be put into it. I know that for a fact. And I've been there, I see how they work. And it's very, very valuable. And I want to thank them for everything that they do. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Elkins.
So I would say, unless anybody feels the need to pull anything out, I would move a positive recommendation for all of these orders.
I'll second it.
Okay. And we do roll call because it's
Yes.
with recommendations.
Financial orders?
No? No, we can do a voice vote? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions or noes? Okay. The ayes have it. So those will be positively recommended to full council, and they will appear on the council agenda on Wednesday.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, thank you so much. It's great.
Nice to see you in person.
Yeah, it's really nice and very exciting.
And I would move to adjourn.
Ooh, yeah. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any nays? Okay, we are so adjourned. Thank you, committee.
Thank you.